Okay, here's the frame suspended above the slab. There's the plumb bob to make sure the frame is in the position it needs to be above the slab. Of course, it all needs to be about level.
Make this 41 inches, not 41.5 inches as shown.
The top of the frame down to the bottom of the support.
The 41-inch height allows you to use form boards that are 40 inches long, which can be cut from a 120-inch or 10-foot piece of lumber.
Kind of is going to determine the eventual volume of the composter, how much volume it can hold, and also the height you're going to have to get into it, which is going to be 12 inches higher yet than this, at least, because of the wire before the nesting boxes. Check all four corners for plumb. You might have to, go around a time or two even, because when you move one corner, the others move a little bit. Make adjustments. I would think that within half an inch each way is going to be close enough. On the top rim, I think you'd want everything to be within an eighth of an inch of being level. You can see where I replaced the temporary vertical support pieces with the longer permanent corner pieces that are going to be in the form work. It took quite a bit of fooling around, readjusting, checking for plumb, checking for level, because things move around as you put them in. I got everything close enough. I think that the level of the top frame is going to be the most important. If it's a little bit out of where it should be in relation to the slab, by half an inch one direction or another, that won't really matter that much. See where I had to brace it off. I had a fence I could brace off against. If I didn't have the fence, I'd do it with a stake in the ground. Here's some 1x6s salvaged from 42-inch pallets. Put these on all four corners. Fastened with just one or two screws, just the minimal amount to keep it together until the masonry's done, after which it will all come apart. Here's the finished formwork. Got all the 1x4s in there. They're minimally attached. You just have to hold up until the stone is laid, support that weight, and it's all coming apart. They're screwed on the back side into that top redwood plate. The screws will all come out. Just disassemble. Here's some 2-inch by 1/4 inch stainless steel nuts and bolts welded onto 8 or 9 or 10 inches of 3/8 inch rebar. That's going to be hold that top redwood plate down. Get some fender washers. Here's some 16-inch diameter semicircles cut out of scrap plywood off a mobile home, and some 1x4 blocks cut
5 inches
long. I'll make arch supports out of those, and the 8 pieces of semicircle. Here the plywood semicircles have been assembled into the arches with the 1x4s. You can see these lines. I drew the lines to match the holes in the slab, the PVC holes. There's going to be rebar that goes in there. You can see the lines marks here also. You'll see that in a minute. I have to drill some holes on the top of the arch to match the holes in the slab. Here you can see the 3/8 inch rebar sticking up through the holes that have been drilled, and the 3/4 inch PVC pipe that's going to be put around that to give it a little space to move around. Here you can see a piece of PVC pipe in place. I've got a little twig in there to hold it centered, and here's a piece already centered with tape over it. They're all going to be taped. Here's the stone I'm going to use to make the walls of the chicken coop composter. It's just what I have laying around on my property. There's a lot of different kinds of stone that a person could use. Suppose you could even use some brick. A lot of different masonry ideas you could use on this. It's up to each person to figure out what's going to work best for them. Got a batch of mortar mixed up. I use a proportion of 3 sand to 1 cement. You want to get it kind of stiff. You can see I've got some of the rocks lined up there where they're potentially going to go. Just kind of get it laid out a little bit in advance. Got some wire brushes, clean off the rocks. I'm going to put paper between that arch and the mortar so it doesn't get stuck on the arch. Here's a quick look at the stone that's been laid up so far. Nothing too fancy. I'll come back and point the mortar in the joints. Here's the stone that I laid yesterday. Laying stone is a whole other subject that I'm not going to try to cover here. There should be something on it on YouTube or the internet. Normally you use more reinforcing on stone masonry than this, but it's just a chicken coop. It's not that high. It's kind of leaning in on itself. I'll probably put some reinforcing up around the top rim. Here's another layer of stone. You can see where I've added in a piece of 3/8 inch rebar around the perimeter, about 8 inches below the top plate. Here's the next course of stonework. Here's the final course of stone masonry. Here's the finished masonry with the form stripped out. I'm going to have to go back and patch in a few holes on the inside, the mortar. I've got these bars here in place. You can see where they're going to eventually be. Okay, made these corner pieces out of 2x4s. They're ripped with a 45-degree angle on the side. On one side I've got some extra blocks, some extra 2x4s. There's going to be some openings for the chickens to get out and for a garbage chute. The openings are 11.5 inches wide. It's the width of a 2x12, 29.3 centimeters. You can see the construction of the 2x4 corners. Here's a piece of 1/4 inch hardware cloth. You're going to need 3.5 of these. I had some stainless steel 1/4 inch hardware cloth laying around, so that's what I'm using. 1/4 inch galvanized would be fine. It's 12 inches wide by 48.5 inches long, or 30.5 centimeters wide by 123 centimeters long.
48 inches wide is okay too.
Here's the frame I built back at the beginning. I put a 4-foot 2x4 right down the middle of it for roost. I put another 2-foot board perpendicular to that for a secondary roost. The 4 pieces of plywood are the triangles out of that original 4-foot piece. You see up here where I put the hardware cloth on. The frame that I just showed you on the ground is going to end up going inside of all this. You see a screw there in the corner to support it. There's one in each corner. Here's the roosting and nesting area assembled on top. I added in a lower roosting area